Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email us because every watch in this show is for sale and in stock. Team Mosso at the 1916 Company to start a discussion or just inquire about pricing. So today we discuss a third generation Vacheron Constantin overseas chronograph. Now, of course, the first generation had a chrono, the second generation had a chrono, and since 2016, the third gen has had a chrono. But it was only in 2023 that this classical black on silver Panda dial became available. The watch is lovable. It's thinner than you think at 10.8 millimeters thick, 42.5 in diameter, but it doesn't wear huge. Comes with two straps, one in leather, one in rubber. And on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, it's big, but it's not huge. I'd say it's somewhere between the size of a 41 millimeter Royal Oak chronograph and a 42 millimeter offshore chronograph. But there you can see it's not as thick as you think, though it's not super slim either. And I would argue that on the straps that come with it, you could wear it on a wrist as small as 15 centimeters circumference, once again, mine is 16. Taking a look at the bracelet, one of the great pleasures of this third generation overseas is the quality of the bracelet. Not just the intricacy of the finishing here, which is impressive, but the fact that every single link on both sides is removable. By the fact that there is an intermediate sized link if you find yourself in between sizes. By the fact that there is a 1.5 millimeter sleeved pull-out, push-in incremental adjustment on either side of the clasp, and then the super user-friendly seatbelt buckle-like release system. That is super cool. And the fact is, despite all these moving parts, the bracelet feels just as sturdy as the Royal Oak, the Nautilus, and maybe even a little bit more robust than the Aquanaut bracelet. Taking a quick look here, silver dial, sunburst center, black registers. There's a lacquered Reho outboard that can be used for reading seconds, minutes, and fractions of seconds. Really, the only refinement it doesn't have is hacking. But because it's a vertical clutch chrono, if you wish, you can just use the chronograph seconds hand as your running seconds and use the reset as a zero reset. So if you want, you can leave the chrono running full time. That's the advantage of a vertical clutch. And another advantage is that there's no jump or stagger to the chrono when you start it. Column wheel chrono, no issues there. Turn it all over. Other changes for the third generation overseas. For the first time, a display caseback, a manufacturer movement, and Geneva seal. While Vacheron's long been known for all three of these, it wasn't until 2016 that the overseas actually got them. It's a big movement, 30.6 millimeters in diameter, and it's a reasonable 52-hour power reserve. You can see the column wheel features a Maltese cross logo at center. We have a rotor with chiseling, media blast, polish, satination, and beveling, all in 22 carats. 5-position adjustment, Geneva hallmark, vertical clutch, column wheel, 150 meters water resistant, and then it has a soft iron ring around it, endowing the watch with 25,000 ampere per meter of anti-magnetic quality, which is just awesome. On every level, this watch delivers, and you haven't even seen it on the straps yet. Super cool, one of the best from Vacheron. That said, some people prefer a little bit more opulence, and for those folks, there's 5N red gold. So here's a variant that came out last year, 2024. Green dials are in, but not all are equally appealing. This one feels like it's going to go the distance. Olive green, a little bit military, but upscale with rose gold accenting. You can get this watch on a full bracelet. This one comes with two straps, leather and rubber. I actually like this look better. It gives a much needed contrast, but also tones things down a little bit. It's full gold in red is a powerful look that's not always super versatile, whereas this can be worn as a sports watch, and just as every Marine is a rifleman, every Vacheron at heart is a dress watch. This is your sports watch, and it's your dress watch. Throw it on the wrist. You can see why I recommend the strap for people whose wrists are really small with these third-gen watches. Now, this isn't as big as the chronograph. This is 41 millimeters. And pardon me, I think I just screwed up here. This is more like 13.8. This one is 10.8, so I apologize for that. But these all wear smaller on their straps. This one is a little bit later than the other one. This is the latest quick release system, so you can see it uses an easier to grip release trigger. This actually comes with a new reference number, 4520. And then there's also a release mechanism for the pin buckle. You can see it right here that allows you to swap the buckle over to the other strap. Again, the movement manufacturer, this one twin barrel, 60 hours of power reserve. All the tech specs you saw on the other watch present and correct. And it is quite nicely decorated. It is a pleasure to look at these Vacheron calibers and unlock their nuances. A lovely piece. We'll do loom shots for both of them here. So this, oops, what's going on here? You're just going to have to take my word for it that this thing is loomed. Not sure why my camera won't pick that up, but rest assured, every Vacheron is loomed. Taking a quick look now, we're going to jump over to every Vacheron you've seen in this show is loomed. Jumping over to the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak. It's the 15202BA in 2017. AP relaunched the Jumbo with yellow gold cases and full yellow gold bracelets. The oldest and boldest of gold is the 15202BA, and the blue on this dial is a very different blue than you get on a 15202ST. It's a different color. It's designed to complement the yellow gold. 8.6 millimeters thick. It's about 49 lug to lug, a little bit more if you include the end links, and it's a 39, of course. The watch is massive. The solidity of these modern Royal Oaks is deeply impressive, and I can't get enough of it. It's part of the pleasure of owning this thing that does feel so hefty in spite of being a thin, compact, traditionally proportioned watch. So let's say 15 centimeters circumference and up, very comfortable. A really neat watch and one that I enjoy considerably. I will say yellow gold in this quantity requires a confident man and possibly the right setting. LA, Singapore, Miami, maybe the Riviera. This is a watch that definitely runs on full boil, full time. So if you want something a little bit more discreet, let's jump over to one of the original indies. Launched in the late 80s, coming off a all-star stint with Breguet, Daniel Roth created his own brand. So what we've got here is a combination of the original C186 or C187 tourbillon, pardon me, right there. And then right here we have a fascinating 2147, also known as the 147 reference chronograph. So the 187 is a fascinating piece because there are two different versions of it, and this is the one you want if you want the utmost in collectability. The 187 with the case back that's fully geared is more desirable. So you get a date indicator and a power reserve indicator. And as you can see, the power reserve is just over 40 hours. It's a Lemania 387 base, which Roth actually developed for Lemania when he was doing work for them during the 80s. So for him to reacquire this movement for his own purposes, it's almost like the caliber coming home. The dial is made of cut precious metal, and you can see the rose lathe and straight line lathe work on that dial is spectacular. We'll fire up the tourbillon here, which you can see is a tri-spoke. And so one of the distinctive features of these watches has always been that I don't know how you could see that, but there's a cutaway in the base of the bezel that allows the longest of the tri-spokes to pass unencumbered. And so each one of these spokes covers 20 seconds of the minute. Fully rounded and polished upper bridge for the tourbillon, that is deeply impressive stuff. Not easy to round and polish without some sort of flaw or distortion. The base plate's media blasted, and you can see that the hands are fired blue in all cases. Get really close to the regulator mechanism, and you can see that the interior bevels of that confined space come together in sharp angles, a level of finish that was not in vogue back when these watches were originally made in the late 80s and early 90s. It's become something that's expected in the modern era, and Daniel Roth was far ahead of the industry in that regard, as it's really only in the Instagram era that people have started drilling down on details like that in the mainstream of the watch collecting hobby. The watch is really small. It's only 41 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip. You can see the classical unbranded crown. Throw it on the wrist. It's easy to wear. Now, it's an unconventional shape, but part of the beauty is in this ellipso-curvex case that Daniel Roth created. For almost the same money, you can get the modern version of the watch, but I would say, given a choice between the original and a recreation, I would always opt for the original. And so you could appreciate this watch. Look how short it is from lug tip to lug tip. This is for him and for her. So hardcore collectors of all stripes, male and female, young and old, are able to wear this watch. And if you look, the lugs are welded on. A really cool watch and an all-timer. In the world of high horology, this needs to be considered along the lines of something like a brass movement F. Pigeon. In fact, I find this more interesting. Taking a quick look now at the alternative, the 147 or 2147, which is what we have right here. Fascinating Lemania-powered chronograph in the same ellipso-curvex case. Now, this one has a lovely vertically striated tuxedo dial, precious metal on top of precious metal. This is sometimes known as a two-tone dial because they are subtly of different colors, the upper and lower layers of the dial. You can see the unbranded crown, the same welded lug structure. and a Lemania 2320 on the back. It is a round movement, make no mistake. There's a movement spacer designed to mate it to the case, but manual wind, column wheel, lateral clutch, 2.5 hertz beat rate. You can see it features an overcoil hairspring and a hairspring hooking guard just above the balance over on this side, something you see on a lot of vintage chronos to prevent an overcoil from getting hung up on the regulator under shock. Finish is outstanding. And you can see that the column wheel and lateral clutch present and correct. And the column wheel feel is excellent. Yellow gold, a great look for yellow gold too. I always thought that older watches in smaller sizes, the best vehicle for yellow gold, and this qualifies on both counts. It is also a formidable collectible, as very few in this combination of unbranded crown, two-tone dial, and display case back were created. Now we're going to jump to de Bethune of L'Auberson, where we have a watch that's actually a revisitation of one of the first de Bethune models from 2003. De Bethune, of course, founded in 2002. Its initial watch was the DB1 Chronograph, which used a movement that was co-developed by Denis Flageolet, F. Pigeon, during their time at THA, which was like a white label movement supplier to the industry broadly during the 1990s. Of course, the movement most famously used in the Cartier Tortue Monopoussoir. This watch is in tribute to the original, and it brings over some of the engineering traits of the original caliber, but this one is entirely by Denis Flageolet. So we bring back the manual wind architecture, we bring back the column wheel, which is tiny and hidden over on the flank, the mono pusher arrangement, and the oscillating pinion lateral clutch from the original. What's upgraded? It's much bigger. It features de Bethune's patented hairspring curve and titanium and white gold balance. It's got a higher beat rate at 4 hertz versus the old Movement's 3. And it's got a 60-hour power reserve versus the old Movement's 40. You can also see every bridge in polished steel, and I do mean mirror polished steel. A fired blue chaptering outboard, and then the edge of each one of these bridges has been beveled with the base plate media blasted. It is a thing of beauty. The case, 42.4 millimeters in diameter. It almost wears lugless, as it's only 45.7 lug to lug and under 11 millimeters thick. It's broad, and this is actually the DB8. So the original watch that inspired this was called the DB8 numeral 8. That is Arabic numeral 8. And it was a mono pusher, mono counter chronograph with a 45 minutes register. This one has a 60-minute register. This is the DB8, so it's DB-EIGHT. And this model with the royal blue dial and the white gold case was launched mid-year through 2024. You can see how the watch is almost exactly as broad across the wrist as it is large in diameter. There is a mono pusher coaxial with the crown for operating the chronograph. It has instantaneous jumping minutes, and because of the oscillating pinion, it is a very smooth chronograph engagement for a lateral clutch. It doesn't rip forward and jump about a second or a second and a half the way a conventional lateral clutch does, because there's very little inherent play in the oscillating pinion. If anything, it staggers backwards a little bit before returning to its proper station. It's not a lateral clutch that has a lot of initial play because of the small size of the teeth of the pinion against the chronograph center wheel. This is a fun watch. Oh, de Bethune making their own cases, movements, and dials, so all of this, including the lathe work on the dial, done in-house. Finally, Patek Philippe. Here's a model that was actually sold. The unit you have right here is sold back in 2013. 38 millimeters in diameter in platinum. You know that because of the diamond between the lugs. It's the Calatrava rare handcraft 5088P001. And not only does it feature a solid white gold dial with Grand Faux black enamel hand engraved, but the case itself has been treated with Champlevé enamel, which is to say it's been engraved to create wells around these little floral motifs, the volutes and the scrolls, and so the wells around them have been filled with enamel and fired. So we have a fired enamel engraved case and a fired enamel engraved dial. All this rotates on a micro rotor automatic that's 3 hertz, 5 position adjusted, free sprung, 48-hour reserve, 22 karat mass with ceramic bearings, and a silicon anti-magnetic hairspring. And the micro rotor is always the prestige automatic movement at Patek Philippe. It's what goes into flagship pieces, generally high complications. So its presence in this watch is extraordinary, and the watch is only about 8.6 millimeters thick, so in spite of being automatic, it's still quite slender. Some say you need a Nautilus for a sports watch. Some say you need a high complication. Some say you need a hardcore vintage piece to be a Patek collector, but that's not true. The fact is, the company's good at so many different things that just owning one example of its broad virtuosity puts you in the heart and soul of Patek Philippe. And this watch, despite only 2 hands, is that heart and soul, and it is a heart you can wear on your sleeve, like all these watches. So reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.